Okay, you guessed it, that's right, Nick Dutch back on the camera yet again, and dealing as I often do with rabid misunderstandings of things that I say. Now, I'm quite a hard-working guy, alright? I keep peculiar hours because this is the entertainment industry. I get basically more business at night. But I can't always work at night because it destroys my immune system for some reason, and so I sometimes have to move my hours back to working during the day. These days, I take up my mornings doing chores, which could be video editing, shopping, the washing up or whatever, and then I log on after an early lunch, and I spend like the afternoon and the evening logged on normally. And I get myself to bed often in the small hours, because that's what I'm doing at the moment. I make these videos at varied times of the day, and because I'm often overtired, I make the occasional mistake. And I admit that. I make mistakes with my editing or with my script. If I do bother to make a script, usually I don't make a script. Usually I've got the ideas up here, and I do what I'm doing at the moment, which is just to talk to you and hope that I'm basically making some sense. And usually I manage to do a reasonably good job because I tend to do these one-take videos. I don't spend the whole day rehearsing. I've just seen one of the wonderful Amazing Atheist videos, his most recent one. And it was a great work of art. I mean, the quantity of editing that's gone into it, the video is quite long, he's got an amazing argument, he's added like lots of statistical data, well, it's data, not statistics, but it's data which has an awful lot of meaning, and it's fascinating. It was beautiful. It must have taken him hours and hours and hours, because you got to think about what you're going to say, you got to do the shooting, then you got to do video converting, then you got to do the editing, then you got to finally render it, then you got to upload it. And that was like a 20-minute video he did. He could do that. He's a YouTube partner. One day I will be, and won't that be really, really nice? So I would then be able to sit down in front of the camera and bore you for hours on end and have a really good time doing so. Yes, baby. But I'm not there yet, obviously. So, my point is that in my last video, I think I made a bit of a mistake. And there's been a slight misunderstanding. It's only a slight misunderstanding, because I haven't had 20 people leaving comments saying, you suck, man, or whatever it is that people say when they think they're being cool, when in fact they haven't actually paid attention to what I was saying. Now, what I was doing was, I've got the book here, right, I was making kind of like an analogy between the use of neuro-linguistic programming and the use of religious exercises, because I still see this massive correlation between the two of them. And I pointed out a section in this book that speaks of using essentially fantasy, alright, daydreaming, as a means of reprogramming your mind, basically. And I thought that's amazing. Is there some kind of connection between that and what religious people do? And I think, yes, there is. A lot of the criticisms that the atheist community are giving against religion is that it's fiction, it's fantasy, it's incorrect, but here we have a book which is saying that you use something which is essentially imaginary, or essentially fiction and fantasy, for the purposes of trying to change and adjust your own life. So that's coming across as being a couple of things. It's coming across as being life-changing, it's coming across as being therapeutic. Because, it's quite a lot of information there. It's put out in a relatively simple structure, so that the average man and or woman in the street can come to grips with it. And as a result of that, it's interesting. Now, I do understand very much when people object to things like literalism. I despise religious literalism because it doesn't make any real sense. And also I dislike it when people use religion as if it was politics and lay down terms and conditions of personal conduct, as if to say, we are like this, they are like that, that's why we can hate them. I think that makes no intellectual, moral sense whatsoever. It's just trying to create an in-group, out-group mentality. And basically, what's the point in that? Because surely it's the in-group, out-group mentality which actually causes a lot of the problems, rather than trying to sit down and think about what these people are actually doing. So, yes, religions and religious people are weird and have problems, and maybe religion itself is just screwed, okay? But there's something to be said about religious experience. It has an impact and an effect upon the mind. You know, this has to be considered to be real. It's a fact of sorts, okay? Right. Now, the very fact that I've said the word fact there in relation to religion is probably going to make a few people out there think, you know, you suck, but, you know, just chill and just try and think about what I'm trying to say. Now, I tend to define things such as prayer and meditation as mind-altering exercises because they are. But if you were just to say, I know, grace, let's say, you say the grace prayer once before you have a meal, will that do you any good? No. But let's say you take another prayer which is a bit longer and a bit more in depth, and you carry on saying it and you repeat it an awful lot, and you use the words and the meanings of the words as objects of contemplation to try and insert that idea into your mind when you've gone into what is essentially a trance brought about by saying this thing over and over and over again. That is going to have an effect upon your mind. I mean, that is a fact. To what degree it has an effect upon your mind, and whether the result is something which you yourself can actually use. Now, that is open to conjecture, but it's not something you can completely dismiss. It simply is not something that can be completely dismissed at all under any circumstances whatsoever. Now, because there is the mind-altering effect, and because, as I pointed out, there are socially acceptable means of creating personal change using fantasy, and religious fantasy is powerful, alright, maybe, just maybe, well, no, I think the word maybe is actually incorrect. Religious stuff can be used by a person who is sufficiently intelligent and objective to religious ideas, and can separate the political bullshit and the mind control bullshit from you yourself trying to control your mind on the basis of, like, straightforward knowledge and learning about natural science things, such as psychology, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and trying to find a way of doing it which is based upon intelligence, not based upon, I believe that God exists, therefore God exists, therefore the world was created in 6 days, and on the 7th day he sat on some kind of deck chair and drank a martini, watching the rest of the world, you know, just slowly go to pot, or whatever. Screw it. Things which are believed are in the mind. But because they're in the mind, they can still have some use and benefit. And if you were to expand and create and develop a psychological stroke spiritual world that was sufficiently detailed to have some correlation with aspects of your body, your mind, your life, and changes you want to make in your mind, and you revert back to things like neuro-linguistic programming, you would, I'm certain, be able to use religious stuff in an intelligent way to create change within your personality, your mind, and all the rest of that, and also to assist with things like goal setting, achievement, and also using the meditation aspect to have a positive impact upon your body. And that would be sufficiently, I think, justified and justifiable by standard, ordinary, regular, day-to-day natural science. That was essentially my argument. Now, I guess my question to you is, have I now explained that better? Because I do want to be able to explain what I'm talking about better, well, so that the average person in the street can understand it. The only other thing that I tend to say is that, you know, personal or psychic or spiritual experiences prove that you can have a psychic or spiritual experience. It does not prove that the thing that you've experienced has some kind of objective existence, which I would say is also true. But on the other hand, these experiences are pretty fucking cool, and so why not carry on trying to have them? And once you've had a few of them, maybe some of them will be a little more weird than would normally be achievable by psychological means, and therefore there might be something else happening. That's all. Nick Dutch signing out for now.